We are joined by former prosecutor Susan Filan. It's good to see you.
Good to see
Any
you.
surprise in what the judge did today?
None at all. He threw the book at her. He maxed her out. And that's not hard to imagine that that's something he would do. He was careful, though, not to give the impression that he was sentencing her for a crime for which she was not convicted. What he said was, the jury has spoken loud and clear as to counts 1, 2, and 3. And the jury has spoken loud and clear as to counts 4, 5, 6, and 7. And that's
4, 5, 6, and 7 is the 4 years. Now, what's going on inside that room? Because some people who aren't familiar with the law would say, well, isn't it pretty straightforward? How could they not know how much time served or all these other things? Why don't they know when she'll get out?
It's a very complicated calculation. There's a constitutional provision in Florida for 85% of time served. There are stops during the proceeding which toll time in jail. It's just very complicated, and then the defense has to have an opportunity to agree or disagree with the calculations. The court is obviously overseeing this. Correction's going to be watched very closely, but she's going to have to do at least 85% of this 4 years.
All right, there's a lot of other talk about things in this case, and here are the questions that I've been getting asked, and I'm sure you have too. Number one, if the jury bought, and at least one juror and one alternate juror have suggested that they think that this little girl actually did drown, that it was an accident, could that be pursued?
No. I mean, as a crime, no. Double jeopardy has attached as to any transaction that arises from the death of this child as to Casey. The negligence was included in the jury instructions, negligence as an alternative theory to how the child could have drowned. That's a done deal. The only possible option is a civil case against Casey, but she's got no money.
And we're watching Casey now. We're told she's in one of these vans and she is being taken back to jail right now. There's also a question about her mom, because you know her mom said, I was the one who went on that computer and I searched for chloroform, even though some records suggested she was at work at the time. And there's been talk that she might be prosecuted for perjury. Do you see that happening?
It is a possibility. The state is going to have to weigh up on one side whether they want to let somebody get away with what did appear to be a clear perjurious statement. On the other hand, is it worth pursuing at this point? Has this family not been punished enough? What possibly could be gained? Although you do want to send a strong message to the public. Lying on a witness stand during a trial cannot be tolerated. So that's what they have to weigh up.
And let me ask you finally about Casey. When she is released, will she then, presumably it happens in July or happens in August, be free and clear? There will be no probation, because some people have suggested, given her past history, probation could mean she'd end up back in jail. She has had some problems with the law before.
She's free and clear. It's done. She walks out and she has served her time on this case, and she goes on to build whatever kind of a life it is that she chooses to build. I've heard people say that she has said, and in a letter to another inmate, she wants to get pregnant again and have another child.
Yeah, a lot of people are shuddering at that thought. We have been watching, in addition to the van, and who can stop the illusion of the white van with so many comparisons to the OJ trial, we've also been seeing some of the protesters, Susan, who are very upset. As you well know, people took very personally this not guilty verdict, and ABC spoke with juror number 3, Jennifer Ford, who defended the verdict. Here's what she had to say.
It doesn't feel good. It was a horrible decision to have to make.
And it was a similar thing that I was told by an alternate juror yesterday, who said he did not discount the drowning theory either. What would you say to the people out there who are so angry and directing it at these jurors?
I would say you can't take it out on these jurors. These jurors responded to the evidence that was presented to them in court. If you want to take it out on somebody, take it out on the person who you think is responsible for the fact that this case was a decomposed skeletal remain case, which you cannot get a cause of death from. So whoever did this benefited from the way she was dumped like garbage in a swamp. Decomp cases are tough. Skeletal remain cases are tough. Circumstantial cases aren't that tough. But in this case, the medical examiner had to make an inference of homicide. She had to infer that there was a homicide because there was no other reason why the remains would have been found in the condition that they were in. When you take an inference of homicide and you put a circumstantial case around that, the person who dumped her like that benefited from the time it took for that body to decompose.
We're just about out of time, but I have to say, as we watched that tape of Casey Anthony coming in and her hair is down and she's dressed very casually, she did look like someone who thought she might get out of jail today, didn't she?
She looked like school's out for the summer.
Susan Filan, thank you so much for coming in.